This is our project for AAE480. The project name is called Temporal, tempo.ral. Tempo because there's a certain frequency that repeats within the speakers once the water runs through it. Also temporal because it kind of plays with your auditory senses. The main goal of this is we were supposed to create an enclosure. And so the first kind of part that you see is this facade of wires, cables, pump tubes, all of that stuff. It's all black because we really wanted it for the user to not know which one is running water, which one is running electricity and whatnot. And then these can even kind of start to become a curtain that one has to pull open to enter the enclosure. As you enter, the first thing that you would see is you would look up at this very bright ring light, which is then kind of casting a light down to translate onto all of the water droplets. And the main part that we were really interested in playing with this semester was frequency, water, and technology. So as the user sits in the center of the circle, water is coming down on them, and to the mechanical eye, or to the actual like physical eye, the naked eye, sorry, you can't see the water droplets kind of standing still, reversing, or like slowly moving down. You can only see it with a phone. So the way that this works is if you play the speaker at 30 hertz, and then you get a camera that plays at 30 frames per second, it makes the water look as if it's standing still. And so that's another great part that we wanted to play with, was the technology aspect. Technology is really advancing in our day and age, and we wanted to kind of cater this towards everybody. Everybody has a phone. And so also, if you play it a little bit slower, so let's say 28 hertz, it slowly starts to look as if it's reversing upwards. If you play it at 32 hertz, it slowly starts to look like it's moving downwards. Also, we have this pool on the bottom of water, so it's a closed system. There's a pump that collects the water and runs it up through these tubes to the speaker, which then have separating tubes onto a mechanical connection on the speaker right here, which then transcends down and then collects back into the water basin. And this kind of acts as a mirror, so that way if you're standing here, the water may look in your phone as if it's going down, but in your reflection it looks as if it's going up. And so and then this is our drawing right here. We really wanted to focus on the mechanical connection and the wires, along with the influence of the water from it. So this is Temporal.
This is our project, Obstruct. We call it Obstruct because the system that we've developed, its purpose is to obstruct, not only the view, but also the movement of the viewer and the participants. So the project itself uses common everyday materials that are used to create space, but in this case, they're used to produce this space. So if a participant goes inside of this and stands and walks through the glass, in essence, they would have to either duck or jump or crawl to not get hit by the high-pressure misters that are working inside the system. So the lights in the system help accentuate the forms of the water, the curves, the arcs that they make. And also the infrastructure serves to just filter the water back to the bottom, to the reservoir, and just reuse all that water in the same system. So there's almost no loss of water through the system, and also the space that's created is fully inhabitable and fun to interact with.
So Hydra Space re-examines Buckminster Fuller's idea of ephemeralization, and so throughout the mid-century 1960s, there was a lot of geodesic dome usage, and leading up to the blobitecture of the 90s, we're kind of examining two different eras of architecture, and I think what Hydra Space does, where Buckminster Fuller was unable to kind of complete his work, is kind of break away from the use of traditional building materials. And so with this project, we aim to use water and foam to achieve an envelope of an enclosure without the use of glass or other materials that mimic just the skin of a facade. And so in this project, we explored several laminar nozzle examples. We initially started with some of these nozzles that would just project a straight stream, and we tried to double up with this enclosure over here down below with this kind of long, large-scale nozzle. But the problem we were getting was these V shapes of water. And so we looked at the problem, and we were overcomplicating a lot, and so what we came up with was this single point system over here where water travels up this main shaft and hits this single point, which is adjustable with this threaded nozzle right here, and that allows for adjustment of the diameter of the dome itself, and the foam creation is resultant of the turbulence of the water coming through the grates and hitting the basin below. The admixture we're running with right now is a mixture of dish soap and laundry softener, and that lowers the surface tension of the water so that it's able to maintain a dome without breaking apart.
So our model is based on fog and water. Its main function is to circulate between the floors. So how it works is that dry ice will create this thin fog that will go around the tanks. From the tank in the top, it will go to the bottom. That will react to the lights on the bottom. So our object or idea is to feel this chaotic atmosphere. So once you're in the bottom, you have this mixture of fog and lights in a combination. So you have this enclosure of fog, and you want to know what's beyond it, but you're not able to. Same with the top. Once you're in the top, you are surrounded by fog itself, and you have this whiteout of fog, and then basically that's our main idea.
Okay. So our project is essentially called Exhale. Essentially, we freeze the ice and then incorporate soap into it so that when the steam melts from bringing in from the dry ice on the bottom, it goes through the tube and then it melts the ice, forming this sort of like film consistency. And then once the film fully develops and then the steam goes through, it kind of like produces like these bubbles. And then the idea is that we also incorporated lighting as a sort of heat source. And then the light is essentially pet store heat lamps that we used so that it melts the ice and then lubricates the interior of the circle so that way the bubble forms more consistent and it slides down and starts to fill up the entire system.